Thank you so much for that beautiful prayer. It feels good to join a community this morning, doesn't it? Yes, yes, yes to all of that you spoke. I'm so grateful for your words, for your consciousness. And I do dedicate this time together to the Holy Spirit, to God, to the Blessed Mother, to Mary Magdalene, to the healing of our minds, to the healing of our worlds. The content that came through for today is really most of it, the good parts anyhow, I had nothing to do with. I did not think them at all, but they rather received them. And that is really what the last lesson of A Course in Miracles invites us to do. So it's not weird or abnormal, but it's good to give credit where credit is due. And so just not that you don't already know that. I know that you know that already. So the title of this talk is wait for it. Wait for it. That's the title. Wait for it, which I think is funny. Patience is the idea, the topic, and it is also one of the key characteristics of a good teacher of God. And patience is not just the virtue of kings, but it really is the self-care of queens. And so in this modern world of multitasking and overachieving, and patience can feel like it's sometimes a sort of a lost art. And we all have the invitation to deal with the distractions and the divisions, and the divisive nature of the world. You know, the media platforms that we engage in, many of these things, just really designed to make us all feel a day late and a dollar short, and that's okay. That's just what it is. And then on top of that, we have like um, the practice that we get into of overscheduling ourselves, of not really truly honoring time. Oh, this will just take a minute, or I can do this. And we really can't. We can't really do it in grace. So we overschedule ourselves. And then on top of that, we have the added responsibility of family life, and some of us and friends and relationships and communities, and all of this is all external stimuli. I'm not even talking about the internal stimuli. And the internal stimuli is even more distracting than the world. The world is not the most distracting thing. The most distracting thing is our thoughts about the world. We spend so much of our time, in thoughts and judgments, and these thoughts and judgments pull us into the past or push us into the future. And we spend a lot of time getting mentally abused and confused by ourselves, being pushed around by our own inability not to practice the art of being present, which is like first cousins with patience, you know. So I share this with us not to make us feel bad, but just to simply invite us into a maybe more graceful, more dignified way of being, and maybe to help us to wake up a little bit to the ways that we may be abusing ourselves. In the Course, it says only our own thoughts can harm us. So yesterday's A Course in Miracles lesson was, and it's a great one, it's also the longest one, if I defend myself, I am attacked. And this lesson gives us a really clear perspective on how unhelpful our own thinking and planning can be. It literally invites us into not making plans. And I know when people come to A Course in Miracles, this is one of the things they often point out, like, how am I not supposed to make plans? Like, this can be a real trigger for a lot of people. Now, the Course actually says in this section, it says, a healed mind doesn't plan. And it goes on to tell us what it does do, which I already told you what it does. It receives. It carries out the plan that it receives through listening to wisdom that is not its own. And it waits until it has been taught what should be done, and then it just proceeds to do it. So a lot of times on the Course of Miracles, not a lot of times, every day on the Course of Miracles, after we do the lesson, we read the prayer of the St. Francis, and it says, like, make me a channel, and the Course is telling us you already are a channel. You just need to get you out of the way so that you can receive, the thoughts, ideas, and plans of God, and you will be given everything you need to move forward in those thoughts and plans. And those thoughts and plans of God are easy. They're not stressful. They're immersed in peace. In fact, peace is the priority as well as the goal. So in this idea of patience, It gives us the opportunity to wait and listen to the plans, the wisdom that is not our own. And when I think of the word wait, I like to say that the acronym is, what am I teaching? Am I teaching love or fear?
Mhm.
Some people say, what am I thinking? Some people say, why am I talking? Which is probably a question I should ask myself more often. Why am I talking? But nevertheless, wait is the concept. Like, can I wait and listen? And why is it important to do that? Because patience actually is a characteristic of a good teacher of God that can be developed. And every time you want to pray for patience, you will be given opportunities to feel into your own impatience. At least that's how it works with me. Like, stop praying to be patient because I'm getting all these classrooms on how impatient I am. So A Course in Miracles tells us that those who are certain of the outcome can afford to wait and wait without anxiety. I don't know about you, but that concept, those who are certain of the outcome can afford to just wait and wait without anxiety, that feels like a total like power and swagger. It feels regal. When you slow to the pace of peace, we're able to give a generous and sacred nod to all things and allow ourselves to truly experience an abundant and luxurious existence so that we can also receive, a graceful and sacred nod from all things. That's living in namaste. So practicing patience can turn the mundane into the mystical. And we've already experienced that. You experienced that. I experienced that. It's a wonder that we don't live there more consistently, but we are getting there more consistently. The final lesson of A Course in Miracles says, um, well, it gives us first of all a peek at the way that we are preciously and precisely cared for by God. Um, it's pretty impeccable. It says, "This holy instant would I give to you." It's saying like, I release control. And then it's saying like, be you in charge. I'm going to follow you. And I'm going to be certain that your direction, just like it says, those who are certain. So I'm going to be certain of your direction, that it will bring me peace. And then this is the pristine part. It says like, if I need a word or if I need a thought, it will be given to me. isn't that isn't that extravagant?
Mhm.
Like, if I need a word, if I need a thought, it will be given to me. If I need stillness, tranquility, an open mind, these are the gifts that I will receive, because love is in charge by my request. And love will hear and answer me because it speaks for God, my source. I love the idea that love is in charge by my request. My friend Jody Murphy was telling me a process that she was doing the other day about sort of like the five-step prayer, but there was a section in that said, I allow heaven and all the hosts of heaven and all of my angels and saints to work on my behalf. And that's not really a part of the five-step prayer. There's a release, so I let go and I release this into the divine plan and hands of God. But to give permission, I just thought that was an interesting thing. And so here we hear the words, by my request, like I'm asking that you take this from me. I'm asking that I turn my will over to you. It says that the holy instant is sufficient to reestablish perfect sanity, perfect peace, and perfect love, exchanging hell for heaven and transcending all of ego's making. So I think that's a good change. I think that's a good barter. This holy instant would I give to you, and I receive everything else. Be you in charge that I may follow you, certain that your direction brings me peace. This is a cure all, right? My dear and good friend Joe Wolf, who's passed on now, he used to use this phrase every time before we did any workshop together. He would always use this last lesson. This holy instant would we give to you. Be you in charge. It's a beautiful way to begin anything. Simple direction takes us back to our awareness that we are so well cared for. But to get there, requires us to really implement some trust and to, take a more luxurious breath and to be still and to let go of all of the planning. So let's just be here right now. Let's just see if we can dip into this moment right here and right now and just experience this moment. I'm going to even invite you to close your eyes and tap into your breath and just notice if you're here. If your body's here, if your awareness is here, if your breath is right here with the tone of your room, with the temperature of your room. The more we practice being present, the more tolerance we'll have for it, the more we value it. Presence is the springboard for miracles. Presence is also the springboard for intimacy and gentleness and patience and tenderness. Liz Wasserman, one of our teachers here at Speakeasy, was facilitating the Mary Magdalene meditations yesterday, and she did a whole thing on tenderness. So beautiful. Vulnerability, visibility. We say these are some things that we fear. We fear intimacy and vulnerability, but actually we crave them. We crave intimacy, we crave gentleness, we crave tenderness. If we're really honest with ourselves, we crave the patience of others. It's so nice when someone has patience with us. you know it's so nice when we experience our own visibility and vulnerability, like when we show up. If you showed up here today, thank you. If you want to put your cameras on, that's another way, just a way to actually be seen. It's scary. I know. That's why a lot of people keep their cameras off. There's this quote from Frederick Buechner, and it says, "What we hunger for, perhaps more than anything else, is to be known in our full humanness." And so it's interesting to think that we want to be known and we want to hide. And we want to be known and we want to hide. Isn't that funny that we do that? So, how do we get to our full humanness? And how do we experience that fullness? You know, I think ask the Velveteen Rabbit because he knows what it means to be real. The first thing that we need to know is that our humanness is not an embarrassing state. Our hair will fall out. Our hair will turn gray. I found my first gray hair today. I'm 55 years old. It was my first gray hair. I know I've got pretty lucky with that, probably because I've been dyeing my hair since I was like 12, but I was like, oh my God, it's happening. So here's the thing though, we won't find ourselves if we want to know our full humanness, we won't find ourselves in a book, even if it's a Bible or a Course in Miracles or 12 step. We won't find ourselves there. We won't find ourselves in a body, and we will not probably find ourselves in a bottle. We've all tried many places to find ourselves in the external stimuli. I know I have. We've tried them all. We will actually find ourselves by losing ourselves. And that means letting go. That means, recognizing that we don't know anything. We find ourselves by finding our way to stillness and silence, where you will receive the truth, a greater wisdom about who and whose you are and what is yours to do. This holy instant is where you determine that you will no longer be defined by the conditions and the current events. That's not who you are. That's not what you are. So many times when we're not present because we're spending time not being at peace, but judging and rejecting what is. And we all do this. And yet I know, and I'm sure that you know, that the things that we spend time rejecting is usually the very, very, very thing that we need. The very thing that we need for our own spiritual awareness and evolution. We might not need it right. We might not know it right away, but there's a place within us that knows us. I was 18 when I knew I would benefit from the 12-step program, but I didn't actually get there till I was 33. A bad day for ego is a good day for spirit. And when the ego gets polished, it's just polishing the patina of my ego. And that doesn't always feel fun, but it and sometimes, to be quite honest with you, I'm using the word polish, but sometimes it can actually feel like, it's more grating than that. Polishing makes it sound kind of nice, doesn't it? and I'm 7 on the Enneagram, so I want you to like me. So I'm going to use nice terminologies, but really, most of us are getting sandpapered. You know what I mean? We're getting like, it's like, like what is happening, when it comes to getting the ego off. So, but here's the thing that Spirit wants us to know is that sand is the key ingredient to the pearl. And every beautiful pearl started out as an unwanted grain of sand. Isn't that interesting? I was walking with a friend the other day and she said to me, God, Maureen, you've been through a lot of things in your life. She's like, every time I think of you, I'm like, Maureen's been through that. Maureen's been through that. And I kind of laughed because I was like, yeah, I have been sanded. But I also know that there's still more to go. There's still more ego to go, even if I have gained many, many pearls from my journey, I still, when the sand arrives, I still want to spit the sand and say, "Duh, not for me. I don't want any more sand. I don't need any more pearls, you know? But think about it. The oyster doesn't have a choice. The oyster, it doesn't want to accept the sand either. If it could, it would also reject the sand. But there's maybe a place within it that knows that this sand is also the key ingredient to the very best thing that it could offer the world. So instead of judging and rejecting these opportunities for growth, what would it take to be, to be more or less reactive, to take things in, to repel less, to be repulsed by less, to not allow things to rattle our cage, and instead of judging it, to just let it transform us and to use the alchemy of love to let us transform it. When we let these things transform us and when we let ourselves transform these things, we experience that namaste. We experience God meeting God. I coach people all the time, and I see people, it's easier to see it in other people, push away their good, and they say, like, this is wrong. This hurt my feelings. This is not for me. I'm not ready for this. I'm not respected here. I'm not loved. I'm confused. And what I know, even when I'm listening, what I know is that all of these scripts are lies, because who wrote these scripts? These scripts of they hurt my feelings, this is wrong, this is not for me, I'm not ready, I'm not respected, I'm not loved, I'm confused. This is written by the ego. So we could take a page from the oyster and say, this is my motherfucking sand, man. I'm going to swirl this into a pearl. Watch me spit this into something of purpose. Sorry for cursing. That was my part, not Spirit's. But this is the grist. Like, this is the grist that I need so that I can heal this for us, not just for me, but for us. So the question is, like, what is the sand that you're spitting? What have you not accepted? Once the sand is accepted, then and only then do we have the opportunity to make it holy and transform it, allowing it to come in and have that holy instant with it. We don't make a holy instant. We don't make an instant holy. It already is holy. What we do is show up for it. It waits patiently for us to come to it, just like a drunk comes to believe, In the 12-step program, as an alcoholic, I thought my life was over when I stepped into a 12-step program. I thought, I don't want to come to this. I didn't know. I didn't know it was my pearl. I didn't know it was part of my pearls. And that has given me so much wisdom. So just like that second step in the 12-step program, come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. What's insanity? Insanity is my judgment that I think I know what the sand stands for. I don't. I really don't. So the first step is just being with it and showing up to it. And like I said before, like if your cameras aren't on, you could show up. Creep out of your chrysalis with us. For God's sakes, if not now, when? I know what it feels like to have to show up, be present. My knees were rattling in that first 12-step meeting when I confessed that I was an alcoholic, but really it was, can't put that back in the can either, but man, it gave me everything. So your showing up is a beautiful first step in your demonstration to be heard and healed and holy. We all have to move from the cozy confines of the chrysalis of this COVID situation and begin reacquainting ourselves with the rough and wonderful experience of being human. There's nothing to be afraid of. We do polish each other, but this is good because I polish you and you polish me.
Mm.
But as long as we're wrestling with something, whatever this is or whatever it was or whatever we thought it should be, we keep ourselves distant from this holy instant, this holy communion. So we get to practice returning to this moment and returning to our source. And in the 12 step, and I don't know why I'm quoting so much from the 12 step today, but like I said, it's an inspired program. There's an acceptance prayer or a third step prayer. I don't remember. It says, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thy will. Relieve me from the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties so that victory over them will bear witness to those that I would help of thy power, thy glory, thy way of life. Like, let me take this sand that I am, this water and sand that I am, and help me make it into a pearl for you. May I do your will as always. Now, here's the thing about 12 step and then Course in Miracles is that Course in Miracles even takes it a little bit further because I don't need to ask God to relieve me of my difficulties. God did not author my difficulties. It would be like me spilling milk and being like, God, can you get that? God's like, clean up your own fucking milk. I don't spill that milk. And God is not an enabler. She is an empowerer. She does not recognize my difficulties. My difficulties is my thoughts about what is. And she can't change my mind. I got to change my mind. So instead of trying to fix and change and heal the difficulty, I just need to release the addiction to difficulties. So I might say, instead of remove my difficulties, I might say, I, this empowered, brilliant extension of God's love, is now ready to relinquish my plan so that I can experience the grandiose divinity that seeks to leak and light its way through me. I am a channel. And if I'm in pain and if I am suffering and if I am stagnant and if I am separate, I made that up and I can choose again and I can release and I can release that. There's a beautiful chant by Alexis Sunshine Rose. How do you like that name? It's a great name. Um, it says, I release control and surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. It's so beautiful if you get a chance to listen to that, the longer version of it. So that's what we're doing here. I release control. I surrender to the flow of love that will heal me. I don't have to be afraid of love. We've been given this moment not so that we can make anything of it, but so that we can, simply experience it. And we give thanks for our ability to return it to God, to not keep it separate from God by saying, what would you have me do with this holy instant? And when we take this holy instant and we don't return it to God, what we end up doing is we start making up things about it. And that gets us into a lot of, you know, tight corners in jeopardy. It usually happens when we're upset about the holy instant, when we say, oh, it said sand. I didn't order sand. And it might not look neutral because we've given it meaning, but it is neutral. In our hands, the holy instinct can be good or bad. And that's why we want to return it to God, because in God's hands, the holy instant is neither good or bad. It's holy, it's perfect, it just is. And if we can allow ourselves not to be attached to the meaning of this moment, then we will have peace and purpose and prosperity because we are in alignment with the precise and precious care of God. So that's if we don't take it seriously and if we don't take it personally. If we take it seriously and personally, again, this is where we've given meaning to it and we start making wars. And then we begin to like gather crumbs of our awareness about this person, place, or thing or the situation. And we begin to orchestrate this war from the gathering of information through a peephole in a fence. and we begin to build a story about what this all means, and it becomes very, very far from the truth. But our angle of perception and our anger and our indignations and our attachments will convince us that the little bit that we see is the whole truth, and nothing could be further from the truth. And we begin to build an arsenal around this little alternative truth. And we begin to not just feed the flames with more fear and false evidence appearing real, but we begin to feed it with the things that are oh so precious to us, like our dreams, our desires, our relationships. All of that has to go into the fire, because to hold up a grievance and an alternative plan takes a lot of energy. And if we are committed to our separation, we will burn everything, won't we? I know that because I've done that. And I just hope that you don't do it. Because when we start to burn the things that are most precious to us, uh, we can become very intoxicated by the flames of our own fear, and then we begin to fall asleep. And we're actually in the business of waking up. And so we don't want to go in the opposite direction. So, not to be too poetic with you, just to give us an awareness that fear and grievances are not worth it, not even worth a match. Um, we just have to dedicate ourselves to knowing that. And if we don't uh, dedicate ourselves to that, we will find ourselves like I found myself, in a tight corner where I had to like really humble myself and ask for help. I already talked to you about the very last lesson, which was this holy instant I give to you. And now I'm going to take us all the way to the first lesson, which is interesting because this is like the bookend of the workbook of A Course in Miracles. And the first lesson is, and this is where we can begin to let go, is nothing I see in this room, this place, this window means anything. Like none of this means anything. Some moments, though, some moments seem to beg for meaning. And so I know that some moments can feel very slippery, specifically like around death. My good friend Kate Miller's here. She runs a death cafe. Around death, we can make a lot of meaning. Around endings, we make a lot of meaning. Endings beg for us to make meaning. And boy, do we make meaning out of endings, right? Right now, all of us are universally navigating an ending together. We're beginning to emerge from the chrysalis. And some of us are saying, I want to stay hidden. I like my mask. I'm actually one of those people. I actually love my mask. I love going out with my mask on. I feel so cozy. I know it's weird, but that's the truth for me. But I'm going to have to like begin to be normal again and take my freaking mask off eventually. But we're emerging from the COVID chrysalis, and we're stepping into this this new consciousness, actually, this bright new consciousness that has been given to us because of the tenderization that happened when we took the sand and spun it into a pearl. And Marie Kondo gives us this really great practice around endings. She has this practice that invites us to like bow to the item or the person. She says the item, but I imagine it as a person, place, thing, a situation, a job, or whatever it is that you're releasing, and and saying thank you. Thank you so much for the service that you've given me. Thank you for taking this part of my journey with me, and I release you. You know, this is such a radical and regal way of ending. And when I think of regal, I think, yes, patience is the virtue of kings, and patience is the swagger of queens, and patience is tender, and patience is honoring, and patience affords us a more regal role. And when we're not playing kings or queens, we're playing the fool, and we unconsciously have a way of leaving endings and navigating endings. Uh, I like to say that the 4 Ds: death, divorce, detonating, meaning I'm going to blow it up when I leave, or drugs, like I'm going to deaden myself and implode myself so I don't have to feel this ending. So death, divorce, detonating, or drugs. And these are not graceful exits, if you want to know. I've tried them all. None of them are graceful. They're really ungraceful. So the idea is to have patience as we navigate this ending. The threshold for the new beginning is the way that we exit, and the way that we exit is the way that we enter. So you want to be really conscious the way that we're exiting so that we can have a graceful entrance. So I invite you to, it reminds me of a talk that I gave a long time ago about birthing, and it was, that the child enters the world not as a guilty child, but as a king. And we know this because as soon as the child comes through the canal in the womb, the doctor says he's crowning, and that we can also remind ourselves of that as we enter and we exit the womb and the chrysalis into this new time by doing just what the child does in order to receive his crown, which is the child tucks his chin to enter. And we too can tuck our chin and move into prayer to enter into this new time together. So I invite you to take the time to acknowledge this universal classroom that we've come through and to recognize that we are graduating from, and take a moment to bow to this teacher that was COVID. And don't blame it, and don't shame it, and don't blame or shame yourself. I know that many of us entered into COVID thinking this will afford me the time to write that book or learn the ukulele or learn to cook. And some people did, and some people didn't. And some of those things did not get done. And some of us just sat around watching the Queen's Gambit or Tiger King. I don't know what the hell some of us did in COVID. It doesn't matter. It was what it was supposed to be. It's sand, it's done. But just hold on to the consciousness of your soul and savor it for the lessons and the blessings that it did afford you, because you did receive many, many, many lessons and blessings from this time together. And massage that in your mind until you transform it into a pearl. And then take that pearl and place it in your crown and exit this time with dignity and swagger. So I bow to you and I bless you for your being with me during this time. Because of you and your consciousness, so much has been developed and brought to light for Speakeasy. And now we move forward stronger and better suited for our next most magnificent chapter, where we emerge from the chrysalis and where Speakeasy is ready to spread her wings. And I know that this is true for you as well. Have patience with yourself and each other. That's the word.
Good morning. We are so glad that you're here today. And we have events for you throughout the week that will continue to feed your soul. And all of these events are free. So we invite you to bring it to your heart to have a donation to Speakeasy. If that is what's been put in your heart, we are able, through your donations, to offer events for you for free. And you can come in during the week. We have yoga, dance, we have 2 ACIM classes. Today we have the community visioning at 1 o'clock Central Time. Tuesday, we have support for you with Death Cafe. Actually, tomorrow, Monday, we have key conversations about abundance and prosperity in your life. And on Saturday, we're going to have introducing the work of Byron Katie. If that wasn't enough, next Sunday, we're going to be in person and emerge from the chrysalis. And the week after that, we're going to have meditation for 8 days. So we have you covered. Today's message, bring it to you, but you can continue that message to just flourish and really bring it to heart through all of our events. And we invite you to go to speakeasyspiritual.com. That is our website, and all of our events are posted in our calendar, as well as if you're part of our Facebook group, check out the events or the announcements. All the information is there with your time zone. So we appreciate for you to stay in the flow of giving and receiving. And I pass it back to Maureen. Thanks.